In the time of the accomplished Emperor Taisung, the illustrious and magnificent founder of the dynasty, among the enlightened and holy men who arrived was the most virtuous Olopun from the country of Syria. Observing the azure clouds, he bore the true sacred books. Beholding the direction of the winds, he braved difficulties and dangers. In the year AD 635, he arrived at Chang'an. The emperor sent his prime minister, who, carrying the official staff to the west border, conducted his guest into the interior. The sacred books were translated in the imperial library. The sovereign investigated the subject in his private apartments. When becoming deeply impressed with the rectitude and truth of the religion, he gave special orders for its dissemination. In the 7th month of the year AD 638, the following imperial proclamation was issued. Right principles have no invariable name. Holy men have no invariable station. Instruction is the object of benefiting the people at large. The greatly virtuous Olopun of the kingdom of Syria has brought his sacred books and images from that distant part, and has presented them at our chief capital. Having examined the principles of this religion, we find them to be purely excellent and natural. Investigating its originating source, we find it has taken its rise from the establishment of important truths. Its ritual is free from perplexing expressions. Its principles will survive when the framework is forgotten. It is beneficial to all creatures. It is advantageous to mankind. Let it be published throughout the empire, and let the proper authority build a Syrian church in the capital, which shall be governed by 21 priests. This video is sponsored by Magellan TV, the documentary streaming service. Question: when was Jesus born? A. The year 0. B. Between 4 and 6 AD. C. Between 4 and 6 BC. And D. 100 AD. Yes, that's correct. Most biblical scholars assume a birth date between 4 and 6 BC, about the same time Emperor I of Han ascended to the throne. And so, my recommendation this week from Magellan's exhaustive collection is The Bible, a History 4K, which, over 6 episodes, tries to unpack the truth behind the biblical stories and how the people in it are viewed today. Personally, I'm fascinated by how ancient cultures interpreted their stories, and this is a great look at that. So, click on the link in the description for an exclusive month-long free trial for Voices of the Past viewers. Thanks. When the Zhou dynasty declined, the rider on the azure ox ascended to the west, the principles of the great tongue becoming resplendent. The illustrious breezes have come to fan the east. According to the illustrated memoir of the western regions and the historical books of the Han and Wei dynasties, the kingdom of Syria reaches south to the Coral Sea. On the north it joins the Gem Mountains, on the west it extends towards the borders of the Immortals and the flowery forests. On the east it lies open to the violent winds and tideless waters. The country produces fireproof cloth, life-restoring incense, bright moon pearls, and night luster gems. Brigands and robbers are unknown, but the people enjoy happiness and peace. None but illustrious laws prevail, none but the virtuous are raised to sovereign power. The land is broad and ample, and its literary productions are perspicuous and clear. 27 sacred books have been left, which disseminate intelligence by unfolding the original transforming principles. By the rule for admission, it is the custom to apply the water of baptism, to wash away all superficial show and to cleanse and purify the neophytes. As a seal, they hold the cross, whose influence is reflected in every direction, uniting all without distinction. As they strike the wood, the fame of their benevolence is diffused abroad, Worshipping toward the east, they hasten on the way to life and glory. They preserve the beard to symbolize their outward actions. They shave the crown to indicate the absence of inward affections. They do not keep slaves, but put noble and mean on all equality. They do not amass wealth, but cast all their property into the common stock. They fast in order to perfect themselves by self-inspection. They submit to restraints in order to strengthen themselves by silent watchfulness. 7 times a day they have worship and praise for the benefit of the living and the dead. Once in 7 days they sacrifice, to cleanse the heart and return to purity. Behold the unchangeably true and invisible, who existed throughout all eternity without origin, whose mysterious existence is everlasting. Operating on primordial substance, he created the universe, being more excellent than all holy intelligences, inasmuch as he is the source of all that is honourable. This is our eternal true Lord God, mysterious in substance. He appointed the cross as the means for determining the 4 cardinal points. He moved the original spirit and produced the 2 principles of nature. The sombre void was changed, and heaven and earth were opened out. The sun and moon revolved, and day and night commenced. Having perfected all inferior objects, he then made the first man. Upon him he bestowed an excellent disposition, giving him the government of all created beings. Man, acting out the original principles of his nature, was pure and unostentatious. His unsullied and expansive mind was free from the least inordinate desire, until Satan introduced the seeds of falsehood to deteriorate his purity. The opening thus commenced in his virtue gradually enlarged, and by this crevice in his nature he was obscured and rendered vicious. 365 sects followed each other in continuous track, inventing every species of doctrine. While some pointed to material objects as the source of their faith, others reduced all to vacancy. Some sought to call down blessings by prayers and supplications, while others, by an assumption of excellence, held themselves up as superior to their fellows. They never obtained their vast desires, and lost their path, and after long groping in darkness, they were unable to return. Thereupon our Trinity, being divided in nature, the illustrious and honourable Messiah, veiling his true dignity, appeared in the world as a man. Angelic powers promulgated the glad tidings. A virgin gave birth to the Holy One in Syria. A bright star announced the event, and Persians, observing the splendour, came to present tribute. The ancient dispensation, as declared by the 24 holy men, was then fulfilled, and he laid down great principles for the government of families and kingdoms. He established the new religion of the silent operation of the pure spirit of the Triune. He rendered virtue subservient to direct faith. He fixed the extent of the 8 boundaries, thus completing the truth and freeing it from dross. He opened the gate of the 3 constant principles, introducing life and destroying death. He set in motion the vessel of mercy by which to ascend to the bright mansions, whereupon rational beings were then released, having thus completed the manifestation of his power. In clear day he ascended to his true station. It is difficult to find a name to express the excellence of the true and unchangeable doctrine, but as its operations are manifestly displayed, by accommodation it is named the illustrious religion. Now, without holy men, principles cannot become expanded. Without principles, holy men cannot become magnified. But with holy men and right principles, united as the 2 parts of a signet, the world becomes civilized and enlightened. The Emperor Kaozong respectively succeeded his ancestor, and was still more beneficent towards the institution of truth. In every province he caused illustrious churches to be erected and ratified the honour conferred upon Olopon, making him the great conservator of doctrine for the preservation of the state. While this doctrine pervaded every channel, the state became enriched and tranquillity abounded. Every city was full of churches and the royal family enjoyed lustre and happiness. In the year AD 699, the Buddhists, gaining power, raised their voices in the eastern metropolis. In the year AD 713, some low fellows excited ridicule and spread slanders in the western capital. At that time there was the chief priest Lohan, and others of noble estate from the golden regions, lofty-minded priests having abandoned all worldly interests, who unitedly maintained the grand principles and preserved them entire to the end. In 744, the priest Qi Ho in the kingdom of Syria looked towards the star of China, was attracted by its transforming influence, and observing the sun, came to pay court to the most honourable. Thereupon the emperor composed mottos for the sides of the church, and the tablets were graced with royal inscriptions. The accumulated gems emitted their effulgence, while the sparkling brightness vied with the ruby clouds. The transcripts of intelligence, suspended in the void, shot forth their rays as reflected by the sun. The bountiful gifts exceeded the height of the southern hills. The bedewing favours were deep as the eastern seas. The accomplished and enlightened Emperor Suzong rebuilt the illustrious churches in Lingwu and 4 other places. Great benefits were conferred and felicity began to increase. Great munificence was displayed, and the imperial state became established, by extended commiseration rescuing multitudes from misery, while disseminating blessings on all around. The cultivation of our doctrine gained a grand basis, and by gradual advances its influence was diffused. If the winds and rains are seasonable, the world will be at rest. Men will be guided by principle, the living will be at ease, and the dead will rejoice. The thoughts will produce their appropriate response, and the eyes will be sincere. Such is the laudable condition which we of the illustrious religion are labouring to attain.